বিশ্বজিৎ
হ্যাঁ
ওই ইয়েটা অফ করে দে শেয়ারটা
আই থিংক স্টার্ট করে দে
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Moshimi madam, you are here? Ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Are you here?
Yes. I'm here.
Okay, with your permission, I'm starting the program. Okay. Today we are here for the SAIARD Knowledge Sunday, and Dr. Moshimi Boral is with us. Let me introduce her. Dr. Moshimi Boral is the Associate Professor in Geography, Shottapriya Roy College of Education, a postgraduate teachers training institution, Kolkata. She has done her PhD in Geography, B.Ed, M.Ed from University of Kolkata, and M.A. in Education from IGNOU. She had a teaching experience of over 30 years, both in school and colleges. She worked as guest teacher in Vidyasagar University, worked in Diamond Harbour Women University, and also RK Mission Blind Boys Academy, Narendrapur. She also worked as academic counselor in IGNOU, St. Xavier, IGNOU and NSOU, Shottapriya Roy College of Education. She had presented more than 30 papers in national and international seminars and conferences. She had 25 papers published in reputed journals and books. She had completed UGC minor research project titled Calcutta and Methods of Teaching in School Geography and Analysis of Different Syllabi Taught in West Bengal, and NESC, MOEF, Government of India as 2 projects. She is supervising PhD and MPhil students under West Bengal University Teachers Training Education Planning Administration. She has also edited books published from Loreto College, Kolkata. Also wrote a book titled Teaching of Geography, a text on methods and techniques. We are overwhelmed to get a resource person like her. Thank you, ma'am, to be with us. Now, ma'am, over to you. It's your session, so over to you. Now you can speak.
Yes. Thank you, Kajri. Thank you. So can I start now?
Yes, ma'am, please start now.
First of all, I would like to, am I visible and audible?
Yes, ma'am, your presentation is visible. Yes, yes.
All right, all right. A very good evening. Thank you for giving me this great opportunity to speak in this Knowledge Sunday lecture organized by South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development. I convey my greatest thanks to Vishwajit also. First of all, I would share today few of my thoughts that I have experienced in my teaching journey. and especially as I am engaged with the special needs children, the visually impaired learners of Ramakrishna Mission Narendrapur. I would like to share and present a few experiences of my teaching learning process over there. Now, uh, I would just throw a bit of light on the tactile learning aids, especially those aids which are used for the, especially used by the teachers and the learners for their uh, madhyamik and higher secondary curriculum. Now, I would like to just give a light on the improvisation part. There are different parts and different sections. Those are related for the teaching learning of the visually impaired learners. Now, I would be just discussing a single section, that is the improvisation of the tactile learning aid. First of all, I would like to discuss few general ideas. That is, who is a teacher? A teacher has two specialities, in fact, two functionalities. That is, as an artist and also as an scientist. Now, what do you mean by an artist? An artist, as a, when he or she is a teacher, is a skilled performer in the classroom. And when we say that a teacher is also a scientist, that is, the educator is also a scientist, that means he or she is also investigating knowledge, an investigator of knowledge. So, in this perspective, I would be discussing my presentation in this evening. Now, we all know, because we are on the same platform, that a teacher necessarily has to have or possess two skills, that is, hard skills and the soft skills. Now, what are these hard skills? Hard skills means that the teacher likes to have and the teacher should possess. Those are simple math, writing, typing, or having the computer ability. But what is the soft skills? This is the most important part, or we can say the ability of affective domain, that is the use of the affective domain, which is very important in this perspective of my discussion. Now, what is this affective domain? It is the relation, drawing the relation of the learners and the teachers together. So in this case, when the teacher is being a scientist, he has to investigate the knowledge. He has to take into account the learners also. He has to see that the knowledge which he is gaining can be easily transmitted to the learners. But where does this skill of improvisation comes from? Where does it come from? Now, this improvisation, the skill of improvisation is very important when the teacher itself or himself can amalgate, can take into the two pillars together. He can act as the artist, he can act as the scientist also. So this improvisation takes place. Now, first of all, let me explain what is this term improvisation in this context. Now, improvisation is something, it's a skill in which an activity is being done or doing something which is very innovative, and it is done in a very spontaneous manner. Spontaneous, that is not pre-planned, and it is done instantly in the classroom, so that your transmission of the knowledge while you are taking the class is totally conducive to that. So when you are taking the class, the way you are making the people, the pupils understand, to comprehend, to apply, to analyze, to synthesize, to create, to evaluate, these takes place. And there and then only the process of improvisation starts in. So this skill has to have been done in the class, especially in the visually impaired learners, that is in the inclusive classroom. Now, along with these two soft skills, along with these two skills, that is the hard skill and the soft skill, when the class becomes a place of experiment, it's a place where the teacher is not a teacher, but an educator, along with the learners, both become the learners, both become the demonstrator, both become the teacher. I mean to say, because my target group is, as we know, that I am engaged in a teacher training institution. So when I'm training my students, my learners, they are the learn, they their classrooms, they become very successful. So I am training, I being a teacher, I being an educator, I transact to my learners, and these learners in a way transact to the class. So it is being transmitted through a chain, through a pipeline. So this process rolls on, and that process becomes successful when they start experimenting with it. Now, when we are going through this experimentation, it is very important to see that previously our learning process or our teaching learning process has changed a lot. And this paradigm shift from the traditional way of teaching learning to the modern context is totally a revolutionary process. Today we have harnessed the technology to a great deal, and we can say in fact that what technology we could have attained after 5 to 7, I think it would be saying that 10 years after that we have adopted in this year in 2020. So that change, that experience we could have attained after 10 years, but we have attained it now because of the surely the positive effect of COVID pandemic situation. So the whole thing, there has been a whole change, evolutionary change of this. We need to have, we need to improvise ourselves also, along with the improvisation of the tactile learning. Now, how should we manage the class? How should we manage these inclusive people, these visually impaired learners? My focus will be only for the visually impaired learners. Now, I have my discussion of improvising this teaching learning aids into 5 phases: the ask, the collect phase, the visualize phase, the create phase, and the act phase. Now, what is this? I would like to define what is this ask phase. If it is extended to a bit, we can say that A stands for acquiring of knowledge or asking more questions to know the truth of it. S is the skill, and K is the knowledge. So surely we can say, I would like to say that It encompasses the teacher's perception of the class. The teacher should know to which grade, to what psychological capacity the learners are sitting in front of the teacher should know, this educator should know where he or she is standing in the class. Who are the learners? Who are the target group? Now, if I have a class full of low vision people, learners, obviously my way of instruction would be different if I have totally blind pupils in front of me. If I have a class mixture of visually impaired, low vision, and the people sighted people, so my class transaction will be different because usually we the people, we the educators, instruct in a very general classroom with the sighted people. So if we have a mixture of all these three types of categories of pupils in our class, the transaction would always and very surely it would be different. So we have to modulate our transaction. Now, we all know that this modulation is very important in the perspective of that because learning is a very flexible and a dynamic process. And this dynamic process is very important for the visually impaired learners. I take into account of the low vision people and the visually impaired learners. I take into both of them. When I'm talking, I'm just sharing with you all. I am taking into context of both of them. Now, these two sets of people are sitting in front of us. Now, if we want to transact a certain any uh, curriculum content of I take into Madhyamik examination from classes, any classes, any secondary or pre-secondary or senior secondary, any sections if I take, it may be of any discipline, it may be of any discipline. It is very tough for them because learning in that case is not very automatic. Automatic it is for the general learners. They may have learning disability. They may have there may be slow learners. There may be gifted learners. But for these visually impaired learners, learning is not at all automatic. It's a very uh, tedious process, I would like to say. It's a very slow process for them to imbibe those content matter into themselves. The teacher or the educator has to have that skill. In fact, has to have those uh, innovativeness, that creativity, and also the constant support and the practice and the patience to transact the curriculum content to those pupils in front of him. So obviously, it involves a lot of demands and it involves a lot of practices, I would like to say, because after being attached to this institution for 10 years, I myself is getting experience each and every day. So obviously it is not a closed chapter that I have experienced a lot and it's now. So each and every time I'm experiencing with them because I have to modulate my transaction process. So I have to ask myself that what are the needs, what are the demands, so that I can get into that transaction process very, very coherently. The next part I would like to say is the collect phase. Now, what is this collect phase? The collect phase is of making choices, is making choices and making selections. Now, selections and choices of what? That would be I would be dealing afterwards. Choices and selections of tactile materials. Now, what is this tactile material that I would be discussing afterwards? Now, what is this tactile materials? The materials which involve certain touch. The touch, the feeling, the sensation that they uh, that they feel when a particular item has been given. I would be discussing, I would be showing a certain amount of slides to you. So I'll be explaining it. So these materials has to have been selected by the teacher, and I have already said that I am the educator of B.Ed learners, M.Ed learners. So obviously, I would inspire my learners items from the ambience, from the environment, so that we can transmit the best knowledge to them, so that we can, in a minimum time, so that we can uh, appropriately use those items for any discipline transaction, for any discipline transaction. Now, next we have visualize. Now, what is this visualization? Visualization is very important because it takes into account certain steps. What are these steps for the visually impaired learners? Now, first of all, the teacher, the educator, when I myself is there in the class, when I am transacting to the my learners, so I'm talking from both the sides, as a teacher point of view, as a learner point of view, because I am uh, teaching my learners who are the would be teachers or they are already teachers. So from those 2 points, I'm just discussing. Now, what is this visualization? Now, this visualization takes into account or it takes into place two different categories, two different steps. Now, what are these steps? First of all, it is the imitation process. Imitation process. That is the lowest order of thinking. Now, this imitation process involves imitating. Now, we have experienced in our very childhood that a little child is playing with a doll, and behaving with his doll like a mother, as the mother is behaving with his daughter. We obviously say, now খেয়ে নাও সোনা শুয়ে পড়ো এটা করো তুমি বকছে, making her study, making her eat. So all this interaction process goes on as her mother deals with his daughter, with her daughter, and the daughter is dealing with that little doll. So that process of imitation should be there. That is, when I am an educator, I have to learn from the visually impaired learners that how they are dealing with the environment, how they are moving with the environment, how they are interacting with the environment. I have to imitate that. In fact, without imitation, I cannot learn, I cannot assimilate that. So I have to have that imitation process. And then only I can feel that what is the need, what is the demand. As we have said that ask, we can understand what is the demand of them. Now the next process is manipulation. What I take from the environment, what I take the information or the data from the environment is not enough. It has to be refined. It has to be graded. We have to manipulate. That is, we have to have certain. I would like to show you a slide on this. That would be better. That is, actions performed through memorization or following the direction. That is, I've already said about the imitation. Now I'm coming to this manipulation. That is, certain memorization and certain directions. That is how to fit into my particular classroom. I have already said that if my classroom as a mixture of visually impaired, low vision, and the sighted people. A classroom has to be a different way. If I have only low vision learners, it would be a different class. If I have a mixture of low vision and visually impaired, fully visually impaired learners, so all these three types of classrooms are there. So I have to manipulate. I have to fit into my classroom the information or the data which I've attained from the ambience. The next part is the precision. This is a very important part because what I have manipulated has to be very precise and it has to be appropriate and it has to be very apt so that the transaction can be done very successfully. And it is said over here that performance becomes more exact and the actions are more precise. That is, it has to be very appropriate. Now, in the visually impaired learners, when they sit for lunch and they get their fish, just giving an example, they are said that your fish is in the part 3, the C3. Now, in the clock, we have 12, 6, 3, and the 9 is there. So, usually we have that fish set in the 3 block, in the place that is in the 3, where we have the watch number 3, digit 3. So if we can practice that, if we have a plate and where is the fish, if you just go on searching for it, you can just give the instruction very precisely that your fish is in the near the digit 3. So they will instantly put their hand on that fish. You have the salt in 12. So obviously in the 12, because previously that knowledge, that transaction has been done. How to see a clock, how to see the measurements and all this has been done. Because I'm just dealing with those school learners. So these has been already transmitted. So this information has to be very precise so that they can find the data or their items at the very quick or at the very moment, instantly. The next is we have creation. Now, what is this creation? And I have, I think, two more steps. That is articulation. Now, what is this articulation? Now, when we are using this precision of using particular items in the class and transaction in the class, we need to have particular articulation. That is, how do I share? How do I transmit that particular item, that particular aid through discussion, through demonstration? Because they are going to touch and they are going to feel, they are going to have that tactile attraction with that. So that articulation is very important so that they can have minimum investment of their energy to have the quickest amount of knowledge. Next is the highest and the most refined process, that is the naturalization. Naturalization on my part, naturalization on the my learners part, that the people who are the would-be teachers, that naturalization has to be imbibed in ourselves. That is, when that process becomes very much into us, we have imbibed it like our exhalation and inhalation. So in that way, we have to imbibe it. It becomes a very natural process, like the winking of an eye. Like when we are having a bright light in front of us, we just wink. So that process of breathing out and breathing in, winking our eye or something of this sort becomes a natural process. That process of transaction has to be dealing with those people, has to be a naturalization process. You need not mean to, I mean to say that it has to be not that you are coming to a class, now you have to start on, you have to get on to the process of transacting to the visually impaired people. Your process has to be very natural, as if you are dealing with a normal class. So that process has to be in the educator himself or herself. And then only the success comes in, because this is the part, because the teacher or the educator has been fully informed about the class. He or she knows what is the class made up of. He or she knows what is the matter of the content matter of the curriculum. He or she knows how to manage the class. He or she knows how to appropriately and to get the best from them, to get the best or the potentiality to boost their potentiality, so that the teacher can make themselves create something. So when the teacher can create, can make them create, those visually impaired learners can make those visually impaired learners to create something, then only that naturalization process comes in. Don't you that I would like to say. It's a long process. It's a painstaking process, but I would like to say it's a very important process that you can imbibe into yourself, and you get a lot of satisfaction through it, because when you can transmit something, and the other people can, those people who are the differently able people can understand you, they have a joy, and that joy can be felt by you. So that is the naturalization process I would like to see. So your actions becomes, it is said over here, becomes a second nature. So second nature. So obviously it becomes within yourself. You do not have to put on a mask and you start on with a class. You can just start on with a class in a very natural way. So that is the part. Next part is the create part. This is a very important part, I would like to say. I will be explaining it with examples and with certain slides. So this part I'm just creating, keeping it for the time being. I'll be discussing in the next few slides. And the last part is act phase. Act phase is, I'm just dealing with two words. Act phase is when we the educators, and when I am promoting my learners, my would-be teachers, or my classroom with the visually impaired learners, I act with them so that we can togetherly communicate, and also to link the society, the community, to our competency, to our collaboration, like we are doing it today this evening. So this communication, collaboration, and competency has to be there when there is this act phase. So I'm just moving on. These are the 5 phases through which my discussion is going to be dealt. So the next slide I am just proceeding is that how do I proceed in the management of a visually impaired classroom? How do I proceed? When I just enter into because I being a very novice, when I enter the class, my gesture should be a bit tailored. In fact, I would like to say it has to be a bit tailored. Now, what should be the procedures of management in the VI classroom? Through all my experiences, I'm just sharing. I have seen that, first of all, in a very informal manner, I would like to say that uh, we should always, for those visually impaired or low vision people, we should always we should know the class, first of all, I have said. We should learn their names. That amount of respect should be there by the teacher for the pupils. So we should call them by names. And in that way, when they hear it, they can surely feel that the teacher knows me by name. So obviously that interaction point, that intimacy point starts in. So this is very important, that when you call them by a name. Next is it's okay to use words that reference site. It's very okay to use words that reference site. That is, they do not have the site. So how can we say with the site? That is, we are saying, suppose I have a table of this length of my laptop. So what would I say? If they are using a laptop or talking globe or something of talking instrument, I would say it's 1 foot. Your table is only 1 foot of your laptop size. So they immediately understand because they use that laptop. So they immediately know what is the size of the table. That dimension, that measurement comes into their mind. Suppose they stand in front of a window, and if I say that you have a window in front of you, and if they ask what is the size of the window, I would like to say it's just 1.5 of your laptop size in the breadth, and just double your laptop size or triple of your laptop size in the length. So immediately they can have that sight. They can visualize. They know what is the size of the window. That perception has to be given very precisely by the educator. So that is the reference side. Don't gesture, always verbalize. If you say, like this, which is sound you have to say, because they do not know what you are showing to them, because they don't have the sight. So you have to verbalize. Always you have to say certain positive reinforcers. You have to use positive reinforcers. If it is if you are not really bound, you can use certain negative reinforcers also. No, this is not done. You have to do it once again. So those negatives can also come in. But it is better that you give positive gestures to them so that they verbalize, they can hear you. So that way you have to give a gesture, and especially when you have a mixture of class of visually impaired and sighted people, obviously you have to take a balance of both of them. So that gesture is very important of verbalizing them. Next is avoiding asking if a student can see something. When we take a class of visually impaired or low vision and a sighted people in a whole class, in a mixture class, we cannot afford to use that word. Can you see? It's very uh, disrespectful to those people. We can never see. We can never say like that because they can never see. They can never see those objects. So instantly, it becomes a sort of insult to them. So we have to refine our words. We have to be very careful with our words. Our articulation, I have already shown that slide, that articulation has to be very refined. We cannot say that, can you see something? Because it may be very appropriate for the sighted people, but it is very unjust for the visually impaired learners. Next is correct sitting is very crucial. Correct sitting means over here, they are using Braille or they have special equipments. So they have to have a particular sitting arrangement. Like we have the ramps for the people who are locomotor disabled. So those particular sitting arrangement has to be there. They know their place because each and every day they come to the class so that they don't get bumped with each other or they don't get into clash with each other. They have to have that sitting arrangement permanently done because they know their classroom, their sitting arrangements. So obviously that correct sitting has to be there. Next is contrast. Contrast, contrast, and contrast. That I have already given an example. When we are contrasting a particular item of their known item with a unknown item, like I've said about the laptop size with a window size. So we constantly the teacher has to be very um, manipulative, I would like to say, has to select particular objects, appropriate objects, has to select the best option so that he can or she can very quickly transact to those visually impaired learners so that he can construct and have that mind mapping, that concept mapping in within themselves. That this is the place, this is the measurement, this is the height, this is the size, shape. Obviously, these contrasting items have to be there. Next is follow the leader. That is, being an educator of these special learners, you have to have certain confidence in you so that they become good, they become good, they have the I would like to say that they like to hear you, your communication, so that you yourself become a role model to them, and that is very important, so that they get a good leader, that is a leader who will think for them, will always have a mind for them, who is a very good uh, or should I efficient, not only efficient teacher, but a teacher who is a guide, a friend, and a philosopher for them. So that inspiring leadership has to be there in that for them. Next is be a confident sighted guide. First of all, when you are guiding those visually impaired learners, you need to be a very good observant. If you yourself can't see half of the things, it becomes very odd. How can you show or how can you lead the people without sight? So you have to have that observing power, the power of observation of little things, so that you can feel it. You yourself can have that tactile ability, so that you can transmit to them. So you have to be a superb sighted guide for them. You have to be a super sighted guide for them. Next is safety first. When you are a special educator, you have to look into their matter, that whether they are safe or not. When they are moving, when they are experimenting, when they are demonstrating in the classroom or outside classroom. So you have to be in the field, anywhere outside the classroom. So you have to have a knowledge of what is the danger coming ahead of them. You have to be a very good guide, so that they are not falling into any dangers. And in that case, I would say that when we used to play, I think I would like to share is that Kanamachi, when we used to put a handkerchief on our friend, and we used to move him, and then he or she has to catch us, catch hold of any of us. Sometimes we used to say, danger, 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 Bipodache. We used to say like this. That is to make him or her conscious or cautious that there may be a danger, because he or she is the friend of us. While playing, certain mishaps doesn't occur. We, the friends, can behave in that manner. So safety first is very important. So being a teacher, that is the first responsibility of us to guard them. Next is examine your own beliefs. This is the most effective part. That is when you have interest in your children, when you have interest in your learners, when you have interest in your transaction process, when you have interest in your curriculum dissemination part, when you like to converse with them, when you like to communicate with them, when you like to reach to those people in different way at different times of the day, at different lengths of the day. That is whether, and they particularly can have that feeling with them, that whether you are with them or not, you have to believe in yourself that yes, I am with you. I like to teach you. I like to transact with you. It's not my part of my job. It's a part of my passion. That belief has to be there. So these are the procedures when you are interacting with a VI classroom. In the next slide, I have given certain approaches for teaching the visually impaired students. Now, what is the first? I have already explained a bit that we need to have certain sensitivity. Sensitivity in the order that you have to arise their attitude. and their aspiration and their motivations. That is, you have to uplift their likings. Sometimes they themselves feel very depressed. Psychologically, they become depressed. That we can't be very appropriate with the sighted people. That depression, in some respect, it dawns into their mind. And especially, I have experienced when there is a mixture of sighted people and the low vision people in the classroom. So obviously, they move away, they shell themselves into a hard shell, and they never come out. So obviously, you have to uplift them. You have to create a sort of inspiration within themselves. A sort of counseling has to be there so that they have that self-esteem and they can have that self-identity within themselves. And then only you can pull them out from their shell, hard shell. That is very important as a guide, as an educator. You can inspire them. And when you are successful of getting out from those hard shells, then only you can start on with your curriculum transaction. Without that, without pulling them out, you just can't be successful with your transaction process. You yourself have to feel that you are there in the shell. The teacher has to feel that you are there in the shell with them. Then only you can feel what is the suffocation. And then only you can feel that you need to come out. When you can feel that, the same pain, you have to be very empathetic with them. Then only you can feel that they also need to come out from that shell. So that is the psychosocial development, that you have to pull them out from that domain of their lonesome. Next is relies on verbal discrimination. Your voice has to have a certain differentiated into tone. Your rhythm of speaking has to be very refined, and the pause and the delivery. The pause and the delivery is very important because you have to know your classroom. Where is the point of attraction? Where is the point of happiness? Where is the point of understandability? Where is the point of comprehension? Where is the point of analysis and synthesis? And when the process of creation comes in. So that pauses are very important. You just go on with your classroom in a very lucid manner, in a very mundane way. They obviously do not understand it. They do not. They can't take it into in themselves. Either they may be hearing it, or they may have a special recorder with themselves. Because there's in what I have experienced in non-ground that usually they record it. They have a recorder with themselves. Each and every people will have a recorder with them. So obviously there has to be a pause. Like when we are talking, we think and we talk. We talk in a certain tone. When we are angry, we are talking in a different tone. When we are very soft, we have to have certain different tone. I have already said that soft skill has to be developed within yourself, and then only you can obviously have a verbal discrimination with them. And so this pause of delivery is very, very important. So soft skill in the relation of the human relations, in your communication, in your consistency while you are taking the class is very important. Your rhythm of speaking, I've already said. And the use of Braille is obviously important. But in this case, I'm not going to give any discussion on the Braille because I am just restricting my discussion on the use of the learning aids. Now, what is this tactile learning aids? I have just given a point that exploring and recognizing the qualities of an object or a material to enhance the study skills. So those are the objects, those tactile are the objects that can be presented in front of them. They can touch and they can learn and they can disseminate and they communicate with them. Now, what are those tactile learning aids? that I will be showing it to you in the few next slides. For hands-on experience and concept mapping, important to allow and encourage the visually impaired learners to handle those materials and artifacts. They, whenever I have experience, whenever they want to learn in a great depth, they usually like to have it in their own hands because they feel it. They feel it. That touch is very important for them. So they need to have a hands-on experience because it's to my experience, a born um, a born blind learner and a learner who becomes visually impaired after class 8, after class 12, after a few years of uh, secondary section, or anyway, or a person born blind are different people, because the people who are totally born blind have a different perception, because they have never been able to see what is the world, how the sky looks like, what are the things, what is red, what is blue. They have already, they have never seen it. They have never seen it. They have never viewed. They have never have the idea about it. But the pupils who have become blind after class 1, after class 6, or class 8, or class 12, they have experienced the world after a few years of their birth. So obviously they have a minimum amount of experience of the world. They have seen it for the first few years, for the past 2 decades, or past 1.5 decades. So they have experienced what is what. In that case, they are a bit progressive in their learning process, and it's very uh, discerning to say that when I have gone through their experiments, their exhibitions, all these little children have been very appropriate and very master of showing their experiments to us, to the visitors. In fact, I was very astonished to see. I would like to share just one episode, little episode, that when I had come in front of a visually impaired learner, that boy was from class 6. When I came in front of him, first of all, I had to tap the desk, like get the sound, because he was just giving an experiment, showing experiment of how to write your name in the Braille. That little boy has learned Braille, and the visitor who comes in front of him just has to spell out the name. Now, suppose if I say Moshumi Boral, I then and then only that little boy of class 6 says, just give me your name. What is your name? Instantly, to the perception. I said Moshumi Boral. Yes, ma'am. Just wait for a second. This was the reply. That was the response. I was astonished to hear that after some time, just within a few seconds, he wrote my name in Braille format in a small sheet of paper already kept beside him, wrote my name, and just handed over to me. Ma'am, this is your name in Braille format. And I have still with that paper with me. I inquired about that boy with the teachers, with the faculty of that institution, that this boy was blind after 6 to 7 months after of his birth, after 5 to 6 months of his birth. So, what light had come in front of him, what he has known, perhaps he doesn't remember his mother's face also. So, how much light he has seen of this world. So, before any perception, That boy has turned blind. He wrote my name and gave it to me. That piece of paper is still lying with me, and I've kept it with all my respect. That boy perhaps is now maybe in graduation, or maybe or I think to a higher class also. And so spontaneously it was being done. I just said that yes, thank you. I was just struck with awe. That how can it be possible? He doesn't know me. I don't know him. But this is the sort of interaction they are having in this exhibition. And there are if for there were at least, I would like to say, there were at least in that room 20 to 25 children were there. Each and every one was showing their exhibit. Physics, chemistry, geography, life science, mathematics, all those jigsaw puzzles, each of them were visually impaired. But they were showing in such, uh, with all their skills, that I was really struck with awe. That how could it happen? How could it happen? And those children were all totally born blind. So obviously, uh, hands-on experience, and really hats off to uh, uh, those special educators who have trained them with such a lot of patience and skill. Next is very important, being a reflective practitioner. In nowadays, we have in our B.Ed and M.Ed curriculum the word reflective practitioner. It's a very important word, I would like to say, but literally little is known about this. It is a very important concept in other countries, in foreign countries, and we have imbibed those two words in our curriculum. But what does this reflective practitioner means? Practitioner means an educator who is practicing each and every day, experiencing with the classroom, a new classroom. Each and every day when we enter the same classroom, we can be a practitioner. We can be a practitioner. Because each and every day is a new day. So obviously the mindset is different. My mindset is different. My learners have a different mindset. Each and every day they are not the same, because past, present, future are all different. Each I can behave today in a different manner. Yesterday I behaved in a different manner. Tomorrow I can be a different person. So obviously the classroom is different. So when I enter the classroom, obviously I am practicing with my learners, practitioners. And what is this reflective? Reflection is that when we stand in front of a mirror, we see a reflection. Why do we see a reflection? Whether I look nice, whether I look decent, whether I look appropriate for that particular occasion, that standing in front of the reflection, in front of the mirror is very important. Who are the mirrors now? It is not that mercury coated glass piece. It is the learners. It would be very important. It would be very appropriate that they don't see you. So who are the learners? Who are just standing in front of the chairs and the tables, because they are not able to see you. But yes, they are able to perceive you. Even they don't touch you, they can see you with their own eyes, with their own eyes of their mind. Because to your voice toning, to your voice modulations, they can hear it and they can perceive whether that teacher, that guide, that friend, that philosopher, that educator is theirs or not. That person is belongs to them or not. They can feel whether they belong to that particular educator or not. They can have that feeling with themselves. So this is a great feeling, that whether you are with them or they are with you. So that concept is the reflection. When this sort of concept is there, okay, that is the point when that reflective practitioner becomes a very very successful, because he or she knows how to deal with the class, and the class also can vent out or have the capacity of all their feelings, of all their sentiments, of all their learning transactions with that particular person. So this transaction process becomes very nice. It becomes very nice, I would like to say that word nice, because it is very conducive for them. They have a happy learning uh, ambience, and they learn a lot, and they remember a lot. And that remembering is very important to have a strong base in their life. So the reflective practitioner is very important concept, that whether you have to think yourself, am I right in the class? Am I appropriate to the class? Whether my lessons are rightly getting into them. That thought process has to be there. And then only you can make yourself, you can make your way into their minds, into that minds of theirs. And then only you can create a sort of uh, enjoyment, or I would say a joyful learning ambience within themselves. That reflection is very important. Next is benchmarking and value-added approaches of institutional target. This is a bit a different way. That is how much of professional skills that can be added so that they can become appropriate to the outside community. How much the skill the institution is incorporating for them, for their placement or for their success in the community. So these are institutional point of view. Next, I would say, and in this space, I have mentioned the point because how much the authority or the institution is giving attention or importance or emphasis on the educator, so that the educator have a lot of amenities to transact to the classroom very efficiently. So obviously, if the institution is very has a very positive relation with the educator has a lot of facilities, infrastructural facilities, and with all those facilities, he or she can proceed to the classroom for the best transaction. So there has to be a very important positive cyclical interaction for the best transaction also. So in that, as far as that reason, I have said over here that whether the benchmarking is important, or whether that benchmarking and value adding is very important from institutional point of view. Next is the approaches of tactile teaching. Tactile teaching. That is when one moves. I would be explaining it to with the slides, but just let me just hint upon those certain points. That is complex, as their understandability is very minimum, as they have not perceived the outside world, the worldly affairs. So we have to give them examples from very simple items of their daily use, and then we can move on to the complex ideas. I've given a few examples from geography, uh, like rock specimens. When we give certain specimens of rock, I have few items over here with me. I'll be just showing. Like I have two rocks over here. This has a rounded. This has a rounded appearance, the shape. It has a very smooth and a very uh, glossy texture. Whereas this rock has angular dimensions. So we can say how the Ajodhya looks like, how the river pebbles look like. The river pebbles are more or less like this due to erosion. The glacial erosion has these types of rock curvatures. So in this way, we can move on from very simple items to the complex ideas. Now, proceeding from known to unknown. What is known? Known items means what we have with ourselves. Like, suppose I'm showing it over here, that we know, suppose we are teaching in a very small class, elementary class, classes 1 or classes 2 of visually impaired learners. Suppose if I show this camel, the plastic one. Now with this camel, when we take them to the zoo, we can say in front, we are standing in front of a camel. So obviously they can't touch because the tactility cannot be done. But they know that they have the idea, how does a camel look like? It has a hump, it has a long neck, it has a small body, it has long stick-like legs. So these are the different known to moving from known to unknown objects. The same we have concrete to abstract. We can't touch the sky, we can't show them the stars. We can have a lot of items with all this. I have a lot of items. I think time is limited, so I will not be able to show them. The next is that we can have metal sheets. We can have of different sizes. We can shape them into stars, or we can have a hot glowing certain point of gold. We can show that the sun is hot. We can make them feel. So those feelings of beads or metals can be done to them. Next, they can be moved from the whole to the part. That idea of wholeness has to be there because they do not have the idea of the part. What is the part? So in certain cases, the entire map or the entire project has to be shown. That the point of happiness has to be there. They have to know the different parts of the entirety, and then they can move on to the different minute particles or minute parts. So I will be showing the, I'll be illustrating on that part. Next approach would be from particular to the general. Like we have particular, these are the particular items. We can move on to the general, and have given a lot of examples also that can be shared from the video. Next is the use of the from moving from the definite to indefinite. Like when they are moved to the fields, we can obviously cannot make them feel those levees or rivers. We can touch the river. We cannot show them what is the whole scenery looks like, but they can be explained. Two different models, two different teaching learning aids, and that idea can be disseminated to them, and they can have that idea that when they are moving to that particular place, they can feel that. Suppose I'm just experiencing you. I had a learner in my class that, how does the Himalaya look like? How can you explain me? So this is a process. This is a process from definite. First, you have to feel the eyes. You can show them with the different constrictions, the different folds to the learning aids. And then you can explain it with different materials. And then when that particular learner is placed in front of the Himalayas, in Mussoorie or in Nainital or somewhere, you are now surrounded by mountains of that kind. That feeling comes in. Obviously, that from moving from definite to indefinite goes on. I'll be explaining with all these, with strings and raised papers, all these items. Raised papers, I would like to show you Now I have over here a paper. Usually all these papers with all these bead-like structures comes with electronic items, and it has certain raised parts with air into it so that the particular item does not get damaged. So we have this kind of paper. Very important and very common thing is using of this scotch brite. That is the feeling, the tactile feeling of roughness. Next, we have egg cartoons. You can have a uh, lot of items made from this teaching learning aids. A lot of items can be made, and we have different sorts of cloth. We have different sorts of paper, like this one, especially made for this discussion, so it to have an idea about all this. That this material is sort of mixed rough paper and cloth materials also. We can have a lot of straws, say hay. So these are the different items. I have a lot of items of all this, so it would be time taking. So I have just explained it, I just demonstrated all these so that you can have an idea about it. The next thing is that moving from the psychological to the scientific. If you can get into the psychological part of their domain, you can make them understand. You can feel them, their understanding. Then obviously your transaction process becomes very scientific. So how you are dealing with your own class, that is very important, and how you are creating with them, that is very important. Now I would be showing. I've already discussed what are these learning aids. Learning aids, I've already said a number of times. I have used this word, learning aids. That it is a particular all these objects that I've shown, the camel, the papers, the cartoons. These can be used for making the learning aids. So obviously these are the devices or the objects, or the laptop can be also be done. The talking globe can also be a learning aid. So these are used by the teacher to clarify so that the subject becomes very appropriate. It becomes very enlivened with the learners, and your transaction process and your instructional objectives so that they have the maximum cognitive, affective, and psychomotor learning instructional domains that can be developed within themselves. So, to have a best conceptual thinking, as already shared in the slide, that the best conceptual thinking, stable reflection, and retention is being done through these learning aids for the visually impaired learners. And we can, to my experience, I can see that all these aids, if you keep it in front of a sighted little baby, and you start on with your teaching, you can feel whether you are successful or not. Because a small little baby, a sighted baby of 3 to 4 years, 2 to 3 years, in fact, one to 3 years, they behave in such a manner like the secondary or the senior secondary visually impaired learners. So that type of transaction with the little babies, sighted little babies, can be done with them. That amount of conception has to be there in the teaching. That how you are transacting with your own baby, with your little Montessori children. So that transaction process can be just replicated for these learners, because their knowledge is also the same with those sighted people. That conceptual thinking, the conceptual build-up has to be started from that particular place. Now, what is the characteristics of these learning aids? Now, how much they can be used? How much? What is the weight? So it has to be very meaningful, appropriate, purposeful. It has to be very cheap, because we constantly can't. I have shown all the articles, these items, which are very low cost and they have no cost. So that has to be very handy, very low economic value, cheap, and they should be shown. They can be shown in front of the class. Shown means I would like to say that they are visible from the point of view that when the people are low vision people, they can see it. The bright colors they can see it. So those visible items you have to paint them. So that's why I have painted this with a deep blue so that they can in the bright light they can see this item, and it also saves a lot of time and energy for the teacher also, so that best transaction can take place with minimum time. And you have to have and we have to remember also that like we all sighted people have different individual differences, different capacities. The visually impaired learners also have different individuality, have different psychological capacity. So you have to reach them differently with different persons, with different learners. Over here, I'm sharing a phone of experience by Edgar Dale of 1964, that it's saying uh, that the pinnacle, that the apex, if we use the verbal only lecture part, it just reaches a few learners. If you use the blackboard, or if you use the computer, or if you use the transaction process only verbal delivery, it only reaches to a minimum amount of learners. Then we move on to the non-projected aids like the charts, displays, models. These can be used to reach a greater number of learners. Next, we have the slides, projectors, sounds, and all these. This can be done to a greater number of learners. And last of all, we have the CAI, the computer, or the different learning aids that we are using for the visually impaired learners. Along with your verbal delivery, along with your voice modulations and all rhythms of speaking, you have to have certain items with you, certain learning aids with you, so that they have hands-on experience and they have the best learning possibility. So it's showing the degree of effectiveness, which is the best in the base, and it decreases only if we are using our verbal delivery in the pinnacle, in the apex part of the phone. I have already discussed this. Now I will be showing certain slides and will be explaining the different. I had already said that this is the part that I have left out. This the create part. That create part has been left. Create part I will be now explaining with certain learning aids that I have been working for the last 10 years with these visually impaired learners, and I have been training my would-be teachers or already teachers in the secondary section and senior secondary sections. So I am just sharing those learning aids. Now in this part, in this slide, I'm using certain, this is the map of Gujarat, and over here the crops have been demarcated with the map. Now Gujarat is a place where different types of crops are grown in different regions. According to the regional variation, these crops are the actual items have been stuck over here. If this is the cotton growing area, the cotton has been stuck. If it is the wheat growing area, so wheat has been used. If it is the groundnuts, so groundnuts. If it is linseed or any other crop, rajma, so that has been stuck over here. Any oilseeds or something of that sort, anything, the actual crop is being stuck in this map. So this is called creation. And this is the part where they touch, that they have the feeling, they instantly know which part of the map, which part of the, if you take a map of India, you can take a map of the world. So if you want to show the crops, you can show any item with that particular items over here. So this is known as a sort of developing a clue for the visually impaired learners. So that clue learning, for giving them the clue. So this is very useful, developing the clue. Next over here, this uh, learner in my class is demonstrating a teaching aid which has been prepared by the learner. First of all, he interacted with these children. Then she is now demonstrating with a middle course of a river, where the river meandering is being shown, and with an oxbole, with an oxbole, it has been made with sand, and over here it has been made with blue. The color has been given, but it has certain uh, raised items. Like I would say over here, it can be seen that we use blue powder for coloring our white shirts or something, white clothes. So that blue powder is being sprinkled over here. And these are the sand particles of different uh, densities. It has been given over here. It has been spread out over here. So these are the different sand particles. Next slide I'm going. I would just like to pause for a moment and would like to hear that am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Now the next part is I'm showing these are the raised parts. These arrows are arrows are raised, and over here these arrows are made of cardboard paper, hard cardboard paper. It has a glossy experience over here. It has a glossy touch. This arrow, if you feel it, that it is showing the direction from which way to move. This way it goes clockwise. Just hold for a second. Yes. And this one is moving down anti-clockwise. So this idea can be given transacted to them for their learning. So we can teach them that this is the hot zone in where we can teach the wind bells. The hot air rises, it moves in a clockwise, and this one is the anti-clockwise. So to the raised items. This is the part of the globe. It has been stuck with different items, with different tactile items of different touches. It has a very smooth touch over. It has a very smooth touch on the surface over here. These pores, and it is over here rough. Rough. In this case, it has been given roughness because it is the hottest part. So this hottest part, that feeling has been given with roughness of items. Next, we have over here, this is the map of India. The color is not over here very important. The thing is that we want to teach them the ports. So the ports over here, the harbors, ports and harbors have been, the shape of the boat has been given. The shipbuilding industries are located over here. So in that way, we can show them, or we can hint upon the areas where the ports are located in the map of India. Next, we have little cutout pieces. These papers are made of, these black papers over here, this part, are made of a different type of paper. The red have a different type of, the orange has a different type of textured material. I have already shown with the papers over here. Now this paper is different with some other papers, with a glossy paper over here. So a different paper of like we have the envelopes over here, like the envelopes over here we have. So different papers have different textures. Like different cloths also have different textures. So different textured paper over here has been utilized. So in that way, we are teaching the different volcanicity. Next, I move on over here to a very important and a very nice slide. That is, we are teaching the block mountain with different textured paper. We can use cloth also. We can use different food items also. Different food items means the spices we can use also to show the different layers of the, when we are teaching the layers of in the rock and how the mountain is being formed. Over here, this learner is very innovative and has made a Bauman's capsule in life science with the help of wool. Now over here, red wool has been used, and blue wool has been used, and yellow wool has been used. Now the visually impaired, those who are fully blind, they cannot visualize these. Obviously, the low vision, they can see it. But the other thing is that not only this, uh, this this little girl has been very precise, has used pools of different strands. We say that 8-plied wool, it is 4-plied wool to show the importance of the learning, the content matter, learning content matter. So different plies wool has been utilized in this section. So for the visually impaired, the colors has been for the low vision, the colors has been utilized. For the totally visually impaired learners, we have she has used these plies wool, different ply wool. Next, I'm moving on to the slide. These are different cutouts of the castles to cardboard. They can feel the have an idea of the different castles, the fort. This is a fort, a red fort. So this castle structure has been done. So obviously, when they are being taken to a Delhi to see the red fort, they can't go and touch. Obviously, they can touch the entire fort, but over here they can have the idea of this, and the length has been measured, and it has been done. So from this perception, they can have idea about the entire fort area and how it looks like. Over here, the animals have been demarcated with different designs with sand. Next, this is a part of the globe, cutout part, like we have in the watermelons. This is a cutout part, and this cutout has been shown over here with different textured materials, papers. Over here, the raised parts have been shown to metal carvings. It has been shown. This is the map of South America with all the physical parts. So this is the part over here. Different matchsticks, colors, wools, papers have been all utilized over here, and this has been also been uh, trained by me. These learners have utilized all these materials, and they have prepared this item. And over here, it can be seen also. These are the different aids are also there in my workshop, in my classroom. So over here, next I'm moving on to this part. Different papers to show the vegetation of Asia. Asia. I'm just giving an idea of different creations. But these are the different tactile learning aids. This is a mud has been taken and they have inscribed on this over here. It has been said that this is lipi, that is the inscriptions, hieroglyphic lipi. Over here, it has been said the Sumerian culture. Over here, it has been shown to mud or clay carvings, metal carvings. So they can touch and they can feel the different inscriptions on it. Over here. Next, we have over here the same thing. Over here, this has been made to plaster of Paris, the volcanic and the crater like look over here. Next, with different materials, the blocks have been raised with paper mache. So it has been spread with the painting and it has been uh, prepared. Over here, we have utilized cotton wool. I've already said that we are moving on from simple to complex, from definite to indefinite. So these are the approaches that has been utilized over here. This has been harnessed over here, and over here we have different relief features, and we have different relief features which has been done by paper mache. On top of that, cloths have been utilized, simple cutout cloths, jeans, and all these materials have been made. All these have been made by my learners. They have been trained. These are the few of my learners. They are standing. And this river, meandering of the river with jute strings, it has been made. Jute strings. This has been made with spices. So to give a feeling, tactile feeling, so of different physiographic divisions of West Bengal. We can use this concept for different divisions from the global context also. This I was saying about the point of happiness, the entirety. So moving on from the whole to the part, this uh, uh, educator is helping this learner to have a, first of all, the concept of the whole map, north, south, east, west. So this concept has been given, is being done. And over here, this, before going into the details of the relief or the river, they are being taught about the point of happiness. The point of happiness is what? The point of attractions. That is, this is the north part. What do you find over here? So that they can have that idea. What do we find in the south? What do we find in the east? What do we find in the west? So these are the first directional dimensions are being given. And then they move on to the center of the map, the details of the map, the details of the physiography, the details of the nitty-gritty of the map. So these are being given in this way. This is the point of happiness, that they start on learning with the different major points. Over here, this same person is just giving a demonstration over here with the detachable part. This is another way of that the whole globe made, can be fitted into a round globe, but it can be detachable into different parts. Actually, we can't detach the globe in the real life situation, but over here it has been detachable part. These parts are being detached so that the learners, the visually impaired learners, can have an idea about the core, the inner core, the outer core of the earth. And over here at the back of this educator, we can see a map, raised map over here. Parts of the raised maps can also be seen over here. So these are all the map reading part. Next, we are moving on to the next slide. These are all done by the help of the educators, by the visually impaired learners. They have made all these riverine features. They have all made all these riverine features, the cataracts, the rapids, the different features have been made by them. Next, I was saying about the feeling of warmth, in the sense that they have to feel what is the mountain, how do you feel when you go to the mountains, how the inside of the earth, what is heat, what is the temperature differentiation. That is being felt over here by this experiment. The light is coming through this hole, like a pinhole camera, it is coming through this light, and this part of the globe is becoming hot. So the rotation part is being taught over here, that the earth is getting hot. So this is the daylight portion, this is the cooler section, so this is the night section. So obviously you can have a view that this learner is visually impaired. So they are having this training that how the days and nights are caused. So this is the part. Constant light of the sun, how it is affecting and causing the day, and the heat zones we have, the hot zones, the temperate zones, the cooler zones, the tundra or the cooler zones. So these are the things that they are learning through the process, and how the ray is being traveling, how the ray reaches different sections of the earth. That has been shown by the help of the strings, by the help of these wooden threads. Over here, different textured materials are being also shown to show the map of in the physiographic map. Over here, the different shapes for mathematical calculations. These are being utilized. This aid has been this picture has been taken from the uh, net. So I'm just showing it to, because there are a lot of activities which are being done. So it will be time to save time. I'm just showing it to you. Different features, the structures are being shaped and they are being utilized. Over here, real life situations, real life items can also be utilized, like the grass materials, the leaves, the twigs, like I have shown over here, the hay over here I had shown over here. So these are the real life things that can be utilized. We can take them out to the garden, we can take them to the campus, and we can teach all these articles. So, what is the care that they are being taken off? So, in the rights of the persons with disability in 2016, disability has been defined, and exhaustive list has been given. Who are the persons who are going to be included in the process? So, previously, there were seven disability items where people were taken. Now, 21 disabilities have been taken into account. You can refer to the RPWD Act of 2016. It has been illustrated in a very great detail. So, I have just dealt with over here that the under category 3 is dealing with the disability of the education of the disability part. It has been dealing. The section 16 is dealing with inclusive education, employability, and their vocational training also. That I have said already, that for their vocational training, the institutions should give them a benchmark so that their placement are being done. So it is a responsibility also. So this is the part. Next is the section 17, so that the government takes specific measure to promote and facilitate inclusive education so that they can be mainstreamed. And section 32, at least 5% seats have been reserved. Previously, it was 3%. So reservation point of view, from 5%, it has been from 3%, it has been increased to 5%. Next on, we are moving on to the recent policy, that is the NEP policy of 2020. That it has been taken up in the August. So it has also focused on the socio-economically disadvantaged groups, that is, it has been highlighted as SEDG. So that they have persons with disability, they have been included. Integrating the children with special needs into the regular stream, it has been taken up. so that they're mainstreaming them, integrating them with the regular education. These policies have been taken up. Certain certificate courses for free and in-service teachers are to be done for the special educators. Like we have special BEd also, so special certificate courses are to be. I think it will become coming up in the few months, after 2 months. The for creating special educators so that they can transact in the best possible way to these different types of differently able persons. Especially, I'm talking about the visually impaired learners in this context. And the availabilities of Divyang for the quality education, the people with disabilities, to have to give them to lend the quality education through assistive devices. That is, they should have particular infrastructural and technological facilities from the institutions, from the home, from the community, so that they can have their education continued. These are the different governmental interventions that has been laid out so that the people of these sections can go on with their education in line with the regular children. So I would like to conclude by saying that um, we are moving on with a blended sort of learning, blended learning. And in this blended learning, we are moving on from the traditional classroom. We are harnessing a lot of technology. We are using small group classroom teaching like micro teaching. Um, we are going for social recitation methods. We are also moving on from guided practice to inquiry-based models so that they develop the self-discovery part, so that they have that capacity and we harness those capacities so that they can ask questions, so that they can themselves create, so that they themselves can visualize. So that thing is that item, that particular uh, trait or psychological capacity has to be developed within those visually impaired learners. And I believe that this entire process, I have just dealt with a part of improvisation. This entire process is totally research based, and this research based, so research based techniques has to be utilized for it. So it has to, the research has to go on, carry on, so that better policies, better ways, better ventures are being discovered each and every day, so that their learning process becomes very feasible and very flexible enough, so that we can reach out to them uh, in a very simple way. It doesn't mean that we are that I've said that it doesn't mean that we are entering into their classroom. It becomes a natural process of daily learning, and this relationship with them can obviously transform, I think, not only from learning to know, learning to do, learning to live together, but we can learn, and they can also learn how to transform the community as a whole. And in fact, uh, I would say that this transformation is very important, not only from the government level, from the institution level, um, from the home level or something of that sort. But our mindset has to improve. That we have to behave in a very natural way with all these people, because they are part of our own. Because all these fingers are different, but all of them have importance to ourselves. So in that way, we have to behave in a very coherently, in a very cohesive manner, so that we can have a very beautiful society to live in. Thank you. And this slide is showing that there will be no gap between us. We can be holding our hands with all of them to make a better society. Thank you. Rajvi, now it's over to you.
Thank you. Yes, yes. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. It's a wonderful presentation, and I think it will be helpful for both the BS students, the present teachers, the will be teachers, those person who will be teachers. So, ma'am, we are really thankful to you for coming here and deliver such a wonderful presentation about teaching aids and all. So, ma'am, now do anyone have any question? If anyone have, you can ask. Ma'am, I think no one have any question. Actually, I think everyone is into your presentation still now. So, ma'am, okay, that's all for tonight. So, ma'am, we can say goodbye and good night.
Good night.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Okay,
you.
ma'am.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.